Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Institute of Product Leadership. As part of our executive speaker series, we have the pleasure of hosting Mr. Sagar Apte, the founder of CarlQ. He's going to talk to us about a very interesting topic of does product management prepare you for a CEO role? I'm sure all product leaders and product managers at some point in their career ask themselves this question: when am I going to be a CEO, and what does it take to become a CEO? And who else better than Sagar, who has started his journey as a product manager and now is a CEO, to talk about this very interesting topic. A little bit of background of Sagar. Sagar is an engineer in computer science and a management graduate from XLRI. He has been playing product management roles with profit and loss responsibilities at Ensign Corporation and Pubmatic. He was also part of the strategic operations team at Symantec for the storage division. Sagar has more than 2 decades of experience across diverse domains like product management, sales, support, operations, and marketing. Sagar is also an avid reader of medieval military history, pretty interesting, and loves driving and traveling. Wow, that's even more interesting. Somebody staying in Bangalore and loves driving, there is no stress because you can keep driving all day. In his most recent role at CarlQ, a connected car platform, Sagar is the CEO with the responsibility for strategy and business development. Now, a little brief about the Institute. The Institute of Product Leadership is a global business school for technology and product innovators. Our institute runs a number of programs, including an executive MBA program, which runs in collaboration with the universities in India. It's an 18-month face-to-face program. We also run a bootcamp program, which is a hybrid online and offline program for 20 weeks, which specializes in product management and marketing. We also have intensive 3-day workshops that we run in collaboration with AIPMM, which is an American body of product management and marketing. Our corporate clients include more than 220 companies. Many of the Fortune 500 companies are part of this group. We have more than 1,600 alumni who we call as IPLite ever since we started in the year 2012. Now, for all of you who have joined this webinar and are coming to our platform for the first time, you're most welcome to join us on the LinkedIn group. When you go to LinkedIn, please type the Product Leaders Consortium. I repeat, please type the Product Leaders Consortium. Please join the group. There's lots of good information about product management and leadership and a lot of good discussions happening on this forum. So we request you and invite you over for this LinkedIn group. Now, a heads up about today's webinar before I hand over to Sagar. Sagar has, Sagar is a fan of interactive conversations. So one of the things that we will do is we will take questions throughout the webinar. You are requested to type in any questions that you have or anything that you want to share while Sagar is speaking. You can type in your question and leave them on the chat window. You can also tweet us at Prod Leader. I repeat, it's at Prod Leader, hashtag Prod Events. So any questions that you have, please send us those questions, and I will ask Sagar whenever I can interject while he's speaking. And for those of you who are who are good question seekers, one of you lucky winners will also get a book that is recommended by Sagar, and it's called What the CEO Wants You to Know. The title is amazing. It's by Ram Charan, and one of the lucky winners is going to get this book. Now I will hand over to Sagar without delaying his talk anymore. Sagar?
Yeah. Hi. Okay. Yeah, hi. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, Sagar. I think it's still loading.
Yeah, fully you should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do let me know once the screen shows up so we can get started.
Sure. Yeah, Sagar, you're on.
Great. Hi everyone. Very excited to be a part of this seminar. Uh, I have always had a soft corner for product management. Have spent majority of my work experience as a product manager across different verticals. In fact, at a time when probably the word product manager was just about or getting coined back in 2000. So it has been quite a journey of over 2 decades in as a product manager across different verticals. And when I went through this whole journey of a product manager and decided to start looking at starting my own company, I thought I was completely ready for being a CEO, and not maybe not just a CEO, but a startup founder. I felt I was ready to become a startup founder, and what else was there to know? I mean, as a product manager, uh, we were handling multiple projects at the same time. Uh, we were influencing people who were not directly reporting to us. We were working with sales and marketing and engineering and operations, depending on that business, right? And you were looking at profit and loss and what was missing, what was the big deal, right? I mean, you were getting through everything. So at least for me, when I started to build my company, I felt that I'm very well prepared for this role. While I agree that product management definitely helped me prepare for this role, there was a lot more to come and a lot more learning to happen. And I also feel that if these learnings, these experiences, in a way, would have made me a better product manager in my previous roles. And hence, I kind of distilled these 5 years of learning into top 10 things that are different for a startup founder from a product manager. One, the book that I've recommended, What a CEO Wants You to Know, is a good example where your own management is expecting these things out of you as a product manager. So, in a way, probably I'm going back in time and teaching myself what I should have learned 5 years back. So, let's get started, one learning at a time. And if there are questions, please feel free to put them on the chat, on the tweet, and more than happy to kind of take them up as we go forward, and we can kind of discuss these things, right? So learning number one, constraints. The biggest constraint I felt as a product manager used to be like a very aggressive roadmap and a limited amount of engineering to kind of handle. And yet I used to feel that there were reasons to give, right? When marketing or sales or the CEO wanted things done, uh, we could finger point. We could say, look, this is the limitation of the engineering team, and this is where we are going. But when you get into a startup as either as a founder, a CEO, or a founding member, right? These constraints become much more real. Not only do you know that there is a constraint, you also know to a certain extent that the constraints are not going to go away for a while. And these constraints are on multiple fronts, not just hiring, right? In a larger organizations where product management exists, we don't really need to worry about hiring because somebody else is taking care of it, right? And at least you're facing one part of the problem, not all the problems at the same time. I think one should be willing to drop things. What this makes you is very, very focused. allowing you to drop things will allow you to focus on the things that are important. And I think that is my number one learning. As a product manager in my past roles, if I would have been able to focus on specific things and drop other things and probably make it known, I would have been a far, far effective product manager instead of trying to work around those constraints all the time. And they were not even constraints to in hindsight to kind of build this out, right? The second thing I think is follow the money or the user trail. What this means is basically you try to understand how money is flowing into your organization because of your product, or users are getting collected, accumulated by your product, and then follow that trail. That is all that is needed. Your gut instincts will be true. A lot of times as product managers, we would go behind trails which don't exist because we were always looking at the next big thing that might kind of hit us. While that is true, because of a constraint in a startup, you're always limited to the number of things that you can do, thereby making you very, very focused. Learning number two, I think a lot of times as a product manager, we go through these phases where we do enter these downtimes, like I like to call them. Things are just not going in your favor, no matter what, right? But luckily, in a larger setup, you can have that downtime. You can step outside. You can probably take a vacation. You can circle back. Unfortunately, when we are talking about these things, we don't basically have that. Uh, Sorry, I was asked to do full screen. Yeah. So when we are looking or understanding the downtimes of a startup founder, unfortunately, you do not have that luxury. Uh, there is no such thing as a downtime because unfortunately in a startup downtimes are extremely infectious. As a product manager, you can take those downtimes, go back and come into the play, but that is not the case with a startup founder. So learn to have me time. What I mean by me time is please understand there is life beyond your startup, and you need to have that as a part of your strategy when you're starting your startup. You need to figure out how are you going to be engaged with the outside world uh, when you are doing your startup, right? And preferably a world which is not related to your startup. I think the initial 2 years for me as a CEO, as a startup founder, everything was moving, rotating around this whole world of my startup, right? Which was fantastic. But a little me not being around, I don't think would have taken us years behind or anything, right? And the other big thing is, as a startup founder, write down your worst anxieties, and you will very soon find out that they don't exist. That they are a very, very small thing. If I were to go back in time as a product manager, I would have probably used the same strategy. A lot of time there are these concerns about your product, about your potential competitor, about your market, and a lot of time they don't exist. We spend so much time thinking about those non-existent ones. So probably I should have just written them down and then taken them one at a time, and maybe most of them wouldn't even have existed. Guys, if there are any questions, please feel free to drop them on the chat clients. I'm happy to take them as we go forward.
Sagar, I think
Yeah.
is it under presentation mode? A lot of people are seeing other slide which you are talking. Can you just check?
Well, okay, is this better?
No, it's not in the presentation mode. Maybe the icon below, can you just click that?
Of course, I've done that. Should reflect in a second. Uh, is it still a problem? Okay, one second. Sorry about this. Is this better?
It's not in the full screen view, Sagar.
Okay, I do.
Can you restart the slideshow?
Yeah, I could do that. Just one second. Let me get out of this lecture then. Has that made a difference? Uh, uh, Sorry, is
Yeah, yeah,
No,
that's fine now.
yeah. Sorry
so it's
about
still
that.
not in, but is it now in a slide mode or it's not?
Yes, yes, this is fine. Please go ahead,
This
please.
is fine.
Okay, I'm sorry about this. Sorry. All right.
No problem.
The third biggest thing was from a learning from a people focused standpoint. A lot of times, as a product manager, we tend to influence engineering, marketing, while none of them are reporting into us. But when you're into a startup world, that kind of completely changes because you're not responsible just for your team and have to influence the others. You're really responsible for every single member of your company, and they could be engineering or they could be operations, they could be support. It does not matter, right? So your area of influence increases a lot, which also means that a lot of articles talk about get the best team on world. I don't know. I mean, I've been in this startup world for a few years now. Been talking to a lot of other founders as well, and you don't get a A team. A team doesn't exist. It's you have to work with the people that you get. People are going to have shortcomings. They are going to have strengths, and you'll have to work around them. And this is a completely different kind of influence. It is not just about influencing people to follow your dream. It's about influencing people to believe in themselves, which is kind of a completely different ball game than what we've been doing as a product manager. And going back in time, I think that would have been a good strategy to do, right? So instead of just influencing engineering towards the goal or the product vision that a product manager has, how about looking at influencing that specific developer to achieve his for higher potential, which not only makes the product manager a better leader in that particular organization, but it also helps bring out the best for that particular product because there are more product owners than just you around in the company, right? So I think people focus would be my biggest third learning, which allows you to increase your scope of influence.
So, question here, Sagar.
Uh-huh.
While the product manager or the product leader might not be the expert, for example, for a developer, the developer would know better code than you. Then,
Yeah.
what are the strategies to influence people who have different skills and who are better at those skills than you are as a product leader?
Uh, Fantastic. Thanks. It's a great question. I don't think you are influencing the developer for development. That he's already good at. You don't have to influence him for that. You have to influence that developer for the money trail that we spoke of, the user trail. And that is something that a developer, engineer does not know why a particular product is being developed. Where are these users or these paying customers going to come from? That's your area, that's your skill area, and that's where you're going to be playing the most. So it is letting them do their job is predominant. I don't think any product manager should ever make the mistake of trying to influence an engineering person on engineering skill sets. That's their job, right? But you also know which engineers like to do what. There are engineers who are more who are more dependable. They may not come out with the weirdest ideas on building something strange out, but if they say 5 days, it happens in 5 days. You will work with such engineers for certain use cases, and there are engineers who easily lose interest in something that is being done around, but they are able to churn out things where there is very little information on. So use everyone to their strengths. You apply them for their strengths and not for their weaknesses. But I would just say that you wouldn't really influence the engineer ever, or at least not on development part of it. Moving on to the fourth biggest learning, I think as a product manager, to a large extent, we are focused on looking purely at how is the next vertical appearing? How are we going to get to the next white market? How are we going to kind of build out the next level of product features really? But none of them really mean anything if you don't have traction. And a very laser focus is required, whether it's a startup or it's an established company, on traction. And what we mean by traction is actually paying using customers for using your product. That's what traction means, right? So you have to be extremely paranoid about getting users to use your product, and that is the only way to build something forward for your product, right? And that I think a lot of product managers miss on. They don't focus on the traction part of it, but they focus more on the next shiny thing of it, thing around their product. And I personally also have been guilty of doing that a couple of times in my career in the past. So what I would probably look at doing differently, have a very strong sense of traction, have those metrics around traction for my product or my product lines, and ensure that the whole company is looking in that particular direction. The other thing is half-baked releases are absolutely fine. I think a lot of times companies talk about reputation and hence shy away from doing early releases. But then there are beta programs. You can actually form customer councils to kind of launch beta programs, but get the product out as soon as you can into the hands of at least a few users, actual customers who will start giving you feedback on how to build this out to the next level.
Sagar, there's one more question, which reads, as a startup founder, what are the top 2 or 3 attributes you look for in potential candidates? And this is a question by Arun Bijapur.
Hey, hi Arun. I'm assuming you're talking about just generally any kind of candidates and not specifically product management.
I think it is specifically about product managers. So when startup founders look for product managers, what are the skills that they look for?
Sure. I think we really look for 2 kinds of skills. I think any startup founder would look for 2 skills in any product manager who's going to come along. Okay, one is how well does he understand the market or the product that he's applied for. What I mean by that is I understand that the person who's applying for a role in my company or any particular vertical may not be expert at, but let the reason for applying for this role be the product and the vertical that we are in, and not just because he thinks why not give this new industry a try. Because that's the biggest problem, right? A lot of product managers apply for a product, try to get into a product without having true love for neither the product nor that vertical, which is a lose-lose game. But if you're genuinely in love with that particular business, that particular vertical, it makes a lot of sense. So at least I try to dig whether he's done enough research, does he understand what we're doing, and then is there a genuine interest in what we're doing to see a match, because his personal goals will overlap with my company goals. That's one, right? The second thing I always ask for and try to find out is what are those things that he has done which are not by the book, right? a lot of product managers unfortunately get into a company when there has already been an established product management practice, which means they have very little time to experiment and play around things. And product management is so much fun. It's so creative that you can really experiment out and try a lot of new things. But I don't know, some product managers just do not tend to experiment or try or even try to take a risk. And that's a big problem if it's a startup, because you are expected to try things and even fail at them if needed, but you should be willing to try new things. So these would be really two things that I would look for in a candidate. uh, Moving on to uh, a big learning, a 360-degree view. Just for lack of any other word, I just use 360-degree view. I think as a product manager, we are focused to a large extent on our product or product line. Some companies luckily have product managers responsible for profit and loss. I luckily was responsible for profit and loss in one of my previous companies. And yet I feel that was still just one piece of the pie. It was still a very, very narrow view of all the things that can happen in a company, right? Especially around operations, finance, and HR. We have absolutely zero view, and that makes a lot of difference. So if you're looking to become a great product manager, a leader in your organization, you need to get interested in these three things. And you need to stop complaining. You really need to learn these departments, because they have their own set of issues to resolve. But a deeper understanding of these three departments will give you an understanding of the kind of people you're going to be working with, what's going to motivate your different teams to kind of look towards the next level. So I think one of the biggest thing is, as a startup founder, is you will have to juggle with multiple roles, and hence the more experience you get in your existing company around areas that you think are not related to you would be fantastic. I think most product managers beyond product management end up getting some experience in marketing and sales, and if they have an engineering background, perhaps engineering. But effectively things like support, operations, and finance always get lost out, and I think one should be looking more deeply at it.
So, Sagar, we have an interesting question on the same line, which says, as you correctly pointed out, that we should be ready to drop things, right? When we have limited time and a lot of things to do. When you start up, everything seems important. How do you prioritize things that you would do and things that you will not do? Put them on the back burner. Is there a framework or is there a filter that you use that has been useful in your career or you know of?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think they say luck favors the brave. So you have to be brave enough and follow your gut instinct and say these are the top two things or three things you want to be working on, and that makes all the difference, right? How does one choose to drop things? Uh, I think a lot of times I mean, at CarlQ, we have been in the last one and a half year, we've been fanatic about dropping things more than taking up things. And a deeper conversation with other co-founders has led us to believe that it is not as important as we thought if we were to kind of go with it, right? We could easily drop something, and the world is not going to go from one view to the other. There is no specific formula or metrics to arrive what you can drop. I think whatever you do not want to drop, or is because you're in love with it, and you're in love with it because you're just looking at one view of it. The best thing that has worked for me is I reach out to others in the company with whom I've built a level of trust, and I kind of value their advice, and I kind of reach out to them and ask them, what do you think, right? What will happen if we don't do this? Do you think we'll lose a few more customers? What's going to happen, right? Also, what helps is having those metrics drawn up, things that are important to your organization. So I think anything that will affect your company metrics, you prefer to not drop them. right? So I mean, it's simpler said than done to identify which metrics are important to a startup, but probably that would be the right start. Identify the metrics that you want to go with. So everything that you are doing right now, question them: are they helping that metric or not? If they're not helping the metric, just drop them. Despite doing this exercise, if you are landing up with multiple things, then reach out, just reach a consensus and pick up the first three things that come to your mind and go with it. It does not make a difference. If all are equally important, then you can just start with anyone. It doesn't matter. So, learning number 6, to a large extent, as a product manager, we are focused on communicating our product vision to the engineering teams. Uh, that's again a very uh, small portion when you end up becoming a startup founder, right? Uh, just look back to your experiences. You're looking at even before you became a product manager, you have this management team explaining things, and there are so many questions running to your through your mind. Does this work? Does not work? What are these guys up to? Probably they know nothing. I think the biggest problem there is that the leadership is failing to communicate. And the problem with communication is it needs to be done almost every day if need be. There is no such thing as over communication in a startup. You keep communicating the same thing again and again until it becomes culture. With product manager, you're not used to doing that. You communicate once to a larger team, and you kind of hope they've gotten the message and move on, right? Because the development gets going. But that's not the case. And if I think about this as a product manager today in your company, if you choose to over communicate your product, your metrics, your product vision, it is going to rub off other people. They're going to be more excited about selling your product or getting those users or supporting it better. So there is no such thing as over communication when it comes to product management or startups. Learning number 7 was building teams. And when I say building teams, it is probably not the same as putting a group of people together. It is not about hiring one guy in finance, two guys in support, three guys in engineering, two in marketing, and say, you know what, I've built a team together. That's still not a team. This is just a group of people. And that's probably the hardest work of all as a founder. Second would be communication. The first would be building teams. How do you get these different functions to work as a team? If you look into your own roles as product managers or as CEOs, or look at your own companies, I think the biggest problem is getting teams to work together. And usually, when you're not in that role where you're responsible for getting this group of people to work as a team, then you feel, oh, you know what, this department doesn't do this, that department has always been weaker. But it's not the case. It's just that these guys don't know each other, right? And as a startup founder, you cannot say that, I'm a great visionary leader, I've got this fantastic idea, and I'm just going to go put this whole thing together and the team will just build on its own. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. You will have to spend a lot more time to kind of get these guys to know each other, create scenarios where they will bond with each other, create things where they will know each other beyond work, thereby building a cohesive team that will stick with you through those tough times that you are going to face one way or the other. And what better way than to experiment this in larger companies where anyway most of the time people are not playing those roles. You would expect HR to build teams, but a lot of times HRs are working on putting teams together, not building teams, right? And I think that role is not taken in most companies, and one can really play there, right? So as we're approaching towards the top 10, I think yeah.
There's a question which is basically on hiring, and it says,
Yes.
what if there's a mistake in hiring, if at all something like that exists, and then the team member is not performing? So first of all, the question is there a mistake in hiring? Can you ever say that there is a mistake in hiring? And if a team member is not performing? Perhaps these are two questions, or maybe you can club them and answer this. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Uh, I think there are going to be times when you will end up with the wrong hire. That is not because you did the wrong hiring or the person is has turned out to be a bad person or something. It's just that you're not matched. You're not matched at all, right? Uh, in these cases, I think the best option forward is to slowly help this person transition out. Uh, uh, you have a direct conversation with this particular person, tell him things are not working out, help him find a new job, help him move on to other jobs. It's not that you hired a wrong person, yeah, or the person, it's just that you guys are not made for each other. It can be very, very easily handled. I think the bigger mistake is when founders refuse to see this, refuse to accept that there was either a hiring mistake on their part, in the sense they did not spend enough time discovering what each other's goals were, and so they've ended up in this particular scenario. So they try to make it work. While, see, if the employee is non-performing, then you can, and it's just a lack of skill sets, then you can probably work around it. But I'm assuming in startups, you usually don't have that luxury also. You don't end up hiring people who don't have the required skill sets, because you as a founder never have the time to train anyone. So I'm assuming you will always end up hiring people who know their job. It's usually a personality issue more than a capability issue. If there's a capability issue, then there is unfortunately nothing. You just have to let go of that person immediately as soon as you can, because it's just not going to turn out. If it's an attitude issue, I would still say you need to bite the bullet, talk to the person, and transition out. There is no coming back from two personalities not working together. So coming to this learning on finance is the key. I think this was the biggest thing that I personally completely missed out as a product manager in my previous roles. Uh, I, I was responsible for profit and loss, and I thought that profit and loss was finance. I mean, come on, we were looking at how much are we spending on developing a product. We were looking at how much are we spending on marketing this, how much are the sales commissions, the channel, the pricing. So that should kind of take care of profit and loss, right? The bigger problem in startups is cash flow and not finance. Sorry, I mean, cash flow is a part of finance. What I mean by it's not just profit and loss, it's really cash flow. You might be making a lot of profit, but if you don't have cash flow to sustain it, it does not matter, right? And so I think that every startup founder should absolutely spend time as soon as they start a company to getting the right finance person on their team. And if they cannot afford a finance person, get somebody who you know who can be an advisor to you in that finance domain, right? And you have to learn finance as a role. You cannot move away from it. And if you're working today and planning to start a startup, take those courses in finance from any of the institutes that offer them. It is going to be key, or you will be spending so much time learning the different nuances of your business that you will be spending way too much, wasting your time doing something that could be fixed right now, right? That finance probably is probably the biggest Achilles heel in most of the product managers that I've met in the past, including myself before I started as my startup. Learning number 9, mind and body. Personally, I'm a workaholic kind of a person. I tend to kind of push myself, and I come from that background where I feel that if I run this one extra mile, then don't worry, I'm going to kind of then later on. There's always rest at the end of this particular grueling session that is going to happen, and with a lot of painful experiences, I learned that that is not the case. That never happens. As a startup, you will be facing one challenge after the other and after the other. And once you solve these challenges, a new challenge will be waiting for you immediately next day. The challenges are never going to go away. You need to start enjoying these challenges. That's one. And you need to be very, very confident about your own self, and you need to pace yourself. So if you look at marathon runners, right, when they're running, and I'm not just talking about the professionals, even the guys who are just getting into it, amateurs who are learning, right, they'll the first thing that they are taught, they learn, is how to pace themselves. They realize that it's a 42-kilometer race, and they have to pace themselves. They can't just dash out and then expect to complete the marathon. Completing the marathon itself is seen as the trophy. So they enjoy, they learn, they know they are going to hit those blocks. They marathoners famously call it the wall. They're going to hit the wall, and they're going to be ready for it, right? And it's going to happen until the marathon runs. Startups are like that. You're in for the long haul, so be prepared. Don't push yourself in the first 3 months and then you're out of energy for the next 6 months when the bigger trouble starts. And get fitter. You need to be fitter more today than tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to have a bigger challenge. You need to spend time now getting fitter. Hit the gym, take up a hobby, take some exercise, but please make sure you kind of stay in the right shape and body. And finally, I think, guys, have fun. Like we were talking a lot of learnings, makes it almost feel, oh, is it that tough? It's not. I think as a product manager, if you become a product manager, you become one because you like to learn new things. You like to explore these things. So you're going to get a lot of things. It's absolutely satisfying to learn new things. You learn new things about managing people, about finance, about support, about dealing with investors, about pitching your product to people who are not interested in you. So many things, right? Have fun. Don't get too serious about this whole thing. That's one way to keep your sanity around as you go through this whole thing. And finally, before we go and open up for questions, two books that I absolutely recommend that you take a look at. One is, please take a look at the book What the CEO Wants You to Know, written by Ram Charan. Very small book. Probably you can finish it over the weekend. Everything is commonsensical in throughout the book, so you would assume, hey, isn't this very, very common? But then just go back and think, have you been following that? Is your company following that? And that's where probably the true learning is. And the second book I highly recommend is Traction, because I think as product managers, I don't think we focus as much on traction. We focus more on product roadmaps. Traction will bring a different mindset to you, which will see results and will actually help your management team take notice of you. That's something what the CEO is behind, Traction, and probably that's what he wants you to know. So I'll open up for any questions at this time now.
So there are a lot of questions, Sagar, and we'll take as many as possible tonight on this webinar. So one of the very interesting question that Raj Shekhar has sent us is that, like you said, get the product into the hands of the customer as soon as possible. However, there is a risk of the customer getting disinterested if the product looks half-baked. Some use cases are not working fully. How do you handle this? I mean, what is worse, not getting the product into the hands of the customer, or the customer having an impression that the product is not yet ready?
Cool. So it depends on whom you're defining as a customer, right? Even one excellent book one would look at is Crossing the Chasm, and there it very keenly defines customers as early adopters and then mainstream and stuff like this, right? Your early adopters are going to live with every mistakes that you make. In fact, I personally found Indian customers to be more forgiving compared to customers in other globes, right? So if you're don't be afraid to put your product out. Not getting feedback quickly enough on your product will have a long-lasting problem for your product versus they feeling it is half-baked. In fact, if you tell the customer that this is half-baked, I am giving you an early access because I respect you and your feedback, he's probably going to like you more for it and become a more lifelong supporter of your product. I think just be honest to him and he will work with you. I really don't see that as a problem at all.
So Sagar, one more question we'll take, and it says, as a founder, what are the 5 main qualities you should have? I'm sure there are many, but I mean, if you can talk about the top qualities that a founder should have.
Sure. Uh, I think the top most quality one needs to have as a founder is to be thick-skinned. And what I mean by thick-skinned is uh, you are going to be hurt. You're going to be hurt by people who don't believe in you. You're going to be hurt by people who will try to take undue advantage of you. Broken promises, false promises, running away vendors, you name it, and you're going to face it, right? You will have to be thick-skinned to kind of work around these challenges, work around these people, not let these affect you. I think that is one of the biggest thing that one needs to have is he needs to be thick-skinned. She needs to be thick-skinned, right? The next biggest quality I would look for is honesty. One has to be honest with himself, with his own team, and investors, customers. If something's broken, accept it. They will be willing to forgive you and work with you. Fooling around will just take you as much. It won't solve the problem for you, right? And I know you asked for five. I think probably these top three would kind of take care. Third is you should genuinely love business. I'm not saying your business, I'm not saying just your product, but you should love this whole game of building products, selling to customers, getting feedback, getting beaten, and finding out, oh shit, I made that mistake, fix it and go back into the game, right? It's like any other sport. It's somebody had written a fantastic article where he said startups are contact sports. You are going to get hurt, but you are going to be satisfied. It's like that, right? You have to be able to get into the game, but you have to love the game for that. And I would just look at these three things really that should sum it up.
Absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much, Sagar. I think today the webinar is really about a startup founders, talk from the heart. And you shared a lot of things with us where, sometimes you also said that things that didn't go wrong, right for you. So that is fascinating, and the kind of questions that we had and the kind of interaction we had for the webinar was fascinating. Now I'll take another 2 minutes, guys. Please stay with us. First of all, congratulations to the winner, Raj Shekhar. Your book, What the CEO Wants You to Know, that was strongly recommended by Sagar, is on its way to your house. So please do enjoy reading this. A few more announcements. Yeah, a few more announcements. Our first e-learning course, Product Management Fundamentals, is up on our website, which says lms.productleadership.com. Do sign up for this course. This course talks about a comprehensive list of all the product management fundamentals, and it will help you a lot in your learning of product management. I repeat, it's lms.productleadership.com. There's an upcoming seminar in Hyderabad on 20th January. For those of you who are in Hyderabad, please take advantage of this seminar and do join us at Avasa Hyderabad on 20th Jan between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Log on to our website to register for the seminar, or call us on the numbers on our website, which is productleadership.com. Our upcoming workshop on product management professionals, which is a 3-day intense workshop, happens between 30th Jan and Feb 1st in Bangalore. So those of you who are interested in knowing deep down into product management, please do join us for this workshop, which is on January 30th and Feb 1st in Bangalore. Upcoming courses at the Institute, our Executive MBA batch of 2018A starts in January 2018, late January 2018. Our Executive Program in Management in Hyderabad starts in Feb 2018. Our postgraduate program in Applied Data Science starts in March 2018. For those of you who are interested in these courses and want to know more about these courses, do log on to our website, and we'll call you and we'll let you know more about these programs. There is a survey link for this webinar. The survey link is on the screen. Madhurima is going to share that on the chat, as well as on the LinkedIn handle and the Twitter handle. So please log on to this survey and give us the feedback about the webinar today. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much. Do engage with us. Write to us at engage@productleadership.com. And productleadership.com is our website. Thank you very much for your support tonight. Thank you very much, Sagar, again, for the wonderful talk that you did. Good night, everybody.
Great. Thank you everyone for hearing me out, and it was great interacting with you all. Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.